James Ing here, biblical business coach. I help faith-based entrepreneurs get unstuck and achieve quantum leaps in their life. I'm coming on today to give some updates. I'm in the middle of a 21-day water-only fast, and it's day 4. Wanted to give some updates on my journey, and if you haven't been following, be sure to follow and also subscribe to our YouTube. And I'm doing an Ask Me Anything on this whole journey and everything. Why am I doing this? Well, I felt like God was leading me to do a fast for spiritual reasons. And we're also preparing to launch a book called The Miraculous Breakthrough Formula. If you haven't seen that, it is a book that talks about a 7-day biblically guaranteed formula that if you follow, you are guaranteed to get unstuck and achieve the impossible. So we have a Kickstarter. We've got 19 days left on the clock. So super big shout out to everybody that has been supporting that campaign, whether through prayers or financial support or whatever that it is. And if you're interested in picking that up, check out my Kickstarter in my link in the bio, and would love for you to support that. But we're also preparing to do an actual 7-day live challenge if anybody wants to walk through that as well too. So we're going to kickstart that January 15th. It's going to be a lot of fun. But just want to chime in here today. If you have any questions with the live or on replay, feel free to drop them into the chat, drop them into the comment on anything, whether for me, whether about this journey, anything that I can help you out with as well too. But I hope you had a great first week of January. So day 4, things that I've been experiencing. So it's been interesting as I've been going through this 21-day water fast journey. Recently, I started for the first time getting into the principles of fasting and prayer and Bible study. I did it 3 days in a row for right before Thanksgiving. That was miraculous. Then it was Thanksgiving, so I took a break. Then I felt led to do a 7-day water-only fast, and that was miraculous, and that was transformed. That's what led me to actually write this book in 10 days after that. But this time, I felt led to do a 21-day water-only fast, which is kind of interesting. So first couple of days have been fascinating. Whenever you do a fast, a couple things happen on a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint, and also spiritual standpoint. So let's talk about physical. First 2 to 3 days, you're going to be dealing with a lot of cravings because your body is physiologically actually starting to wean off of its carbohydrate usage. In fact, the energy storage unit that we typically have in our body is called glycogen. Glycogen is just storing sugars. So the body typically stores around 1 to 2 days worth of glycogen. And then after you burn through that glycogen, as you're going through that, you have a lot of cravings, whether it's habitual cravings or it's just your body's craving blood sugar and stuff like that. After it burns through that, your body actually shifts and it goes into a ketosis state. And ketosis is when you start to burn fat itself for energy. And actually, when you start doing that, your hunger starts to go down, interestingly enough. Your hormone of ghrelin called the hunger hormone, that actually goes down as well too. So it's kind of fascinating. Physiologically, what happens is your body actually, you go through some cravings in the first couple of days, but then you get to a point when the cravings actually honestly disappear. In fact, today, day 4, day 3 was a little bit harder for me. I had some cravings. Day 4, I was pretty good. I had a little bit of cravings, but generally pretty good. Generally, energy has been all right as well too. But a lot of mental clarity happens. You are a little cold because your calories are low. So that's I'm wearing a scarf and all these types of things indoors. But physically, it's been interesting. I think I've lost like 6 pounds, something like that, in the last 4 days. So that's been cool. And so on the physical end, that's what's been going on. On the mental end, that's been interesting too. I think as your mind's adjusting during a fast, you have periods when your mind's a little bit groggy, your mind's a little bit lethargic, a little bit slow because your brain's it's shifting in between energy sources. So there are some moments where you feel a little bit like, a little bit blah. You're not thinking the best, but there does come a point when your body shifts that your mind starts to think way more clearly. In fact, the purpose of a spiritual fast is so that you can detach your mind from the things of the body, because we're so tied to so many things in this world: worries, fears, food, hunger, like all these different types of things. So our mind gets really cluttered with these types of influences. But what happens is when you do a spiritual fast, when you fast physically, you detach yourself from the worldly stuff. And if you do it in a spiritual way, you actually attach yourself to the spiritual nature of things. So your mind starts to get influenced more by the spirit than it does of the physical self. In fact, if you've ever done any type of spiritual fast, let me know. Put a 1 in the chat. I'm curious. But it's been fascinating, because what starts to happen that I've noticed is I get inclined, like I actually don't really have cravings to do anything that's not productive. Like, for example, I might want to binge watch Netflix or binge watch YouTube or something. I know all of us have different cravings and different types of things that bring us joy. But I actually have no temptation to watch anything that's not productive right now. It's kind of interesting, but as my hunger, physical hunger went down, my mindset hunger for the other things that aren't really helpful, they go down as well too. So I don't crave to watch movies. I don't crave to play games. I don't crave to do anything that is not productive. In fact, what I'm craving more of is I'm binge watching sermons. I'm binge reading the Bible. I'm binge praying. Like, it's like the body now wants to go towards spiritual things to fill its cravings, which is kind of fascinating. So when I'm hungry or I'm tired or I'm weak, I find myself looking for spiritual things that'll fill you spiritually. And that's what a spiritual fast does. It allows you to stay connected to your spirit more than it does to your physical needs, your worldly needs, which is great. Because if we want miracles in our life, then the only way miracles can happen in our life is if we seek the things of the spirit. I was just going through, and if you have any comments or questions on this, feel free to drop in the chat with live or on replay, and I'll answer those as well too as we go through. Day 4 has been fascinating because now today officially concludes day 4, starting day 5 now of this water only fast. But I started to get fascinated about studying certain parts in the Bible. And today I was just, for the last hour or two, I was fascinated by Mark 9, 14 to 29. If you don't know that passage of scripture, fascinating. But it talks about a demon-possessed boy. The father is bringing this boy to Jesus, who is alive during that time and walking around doing his ministry. And it's a story about how Jesus eventually heals the boy of this demon and like casts him out, right? It was just so fascinating because I was going through this and something that Jesus asked. So the father that brought this demon-possessed boy asked Jesus, "Hey, basically, like, can you heal my son?" And Jesus is like, "Well, I'm God." He basically said, "Well, all things are possible for him who believes." And the man's father, the boy's father, responds, "I do believe, but help me with my unbelief." And Jesus was like, "That's enough." Boom. And healed the boy. I'm like, wow, that's so fascinating. Like, things I'm starting to realize as I'm starting to get some more spiritual cravings is what's the truth, right? Because I think so many times in our lives, I don't know if you feel this way, but the things that we want to happen in our lives, the breakthroughs, the miracles, the success, the goals, all that, I think a lot of times we think to ourselves, well, if only I had more belief, if only I had more faith, if only I believed harder. And while it's important to believe, what's so powerful about this passage that I felt led to study in Mark 9 was the reality is, for the person of faith, the faith is not in the idea itself. So, for example, you have a goal. Traditional mindset teaching will teach you, you got to see it, you got to believe it before you see it. You got to see it in your mind before you see it in your hands. And there's some truth in that, right? It's important to have belief. But the reality of the spiritual truth of things for a person of faith is that you don't need to believe it perfectly in order to see it. The reality is, what we need to do is believe that if we have a goal, a vision, an aspiration, that we believe that He who is in charge of everything, that we believe that God, who created all, who's in charge of all, who is all, that anything is possible for God. That we believe that anything is possible not only because we believe in it hard enough, that we're trying hard enough, but the reality is that we have faith in Him who is the author of faith, in Him who is the creator, in Him who knows all, who controls all. And it's interesting because as I was studying through this, it hit me in a different way today, because especially as you're going through a water only fast, you realize how weak you really are. And traditionally, with how the world teaches us, you got to be strong, you got to, pick yourself up. If it were to be, it's up to me. But I'm given a lot of hope and encouragement, because if we realize that as people of faith, that it's not about what you can do. All we need to do is have faith the size of a mustard seed, which is real small, mustard seed. And if it is in God's will, then God will make it all happen. That our job is not to have abundance of faith. Our job is not to believe harder or stronger. Our job is not to be like, oh, I hope I believe. It's not none of that. Our job is to simply realize that we just bring the amount of faith and belief that we can muster up, to use that phrase. And that if it is in God's will, then God, who is capable of doing all things are possible for him who believes. Not because we believe hard, but simply because we believe that God is the author of impossible, and that if he wills it, if we just believe a little bit, then God can do all things. And I found so much joy in that. I found so much relief in that, because it made me realize that I don't have to be that good. The reality is I'm not that good. The reality is I'm not as strong as what I think. Have you realized by now that we're really pretty weak, in all honesty? Like, we're just this little like meat flesh thing, and things can take us down, right? Case in point, have you ever had a paper cut? Have you had a paper cut before? You start to realize how weak we are, because something as simple as a paper cut can take us down. Or you stub your toe when you woke up, right? Like, these things are just so small, but they can take us down so much. The world teaches us that we are the captain of our faith, the master of our soul. The world teaches us that it's all about us and what we can do. But what God says and what the Bible says is the reality is we're not that strong. And this checks my ego, because I want to believe that I'm super strong and I'm super faithful and all that. But if I accept that to be a truth and reality, there's a bigger grace and a bigger gift that comes from this. And I just realized that it's okay to not be okay, right? It's okay to not be that strong. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to have doubt. It's okay to have fear. It's okay to be vulnerable. But I'm okay with being not okay, because I know that the partnership with him, who is the author of everything, who is the perfect one, who is the creator, that if I simply just have a little bit of faith, exactly, right? It's okay to not be okay. If I just have a little bit of faith that God is who he says that he is, then if I just accept that reality, that it's not about me, but it's about who he is and what he does, then miracles can happen if he wills it in my life. And that if things don't happen, God's rejection is many times his protection, or perhaps it's his redirection. And that's okay. And I find so much peace in that. What do you guys think about this? I'm just going through Mark 9:14 to 9:29, and it's a fascinating passage about what faith really is. And it gives me a lot more joy and gives me a lot more excitement. Angels are blessings, absolutely. And what that also allows me to do too is it allows me to pray bolder prayers and bigger things and bigger goals. For the person of faith, does that mean that we should just give up on life and not believe in anything? No. It shows that we actually have a very, very unique opportunity that in our weakness, we have a power that for the person that does not believe does not have. And we have direct access to the God that is the author of everything, the God that created this entire universe with just a thought that said, let there be light, and there was light. That we have direct communion and relationship with this God of the entire universe that loved us so much that he sent his one and only son to die for us so that he could be a propitiation for our sin and we could actually be redeemed for life. That he can actually see you, see me in our imperfect state, and not see us in all of our imperfection, but see Jesus, his son, who lived the perfect life, the blameless life that we cannot live ourselves. And by doing that gives us a different type of power to live this life. Now, of course, we get saved into eternity, but what about this life, right? The biblical life is not just about heaven. The biblical life is bringing the let the kingdom come. Let thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. To bring the kingdom here, to live an empowered life, to know that we have the ultimate victor. I think about David and Goliath. And I think about what happened is when David, this little shepherd boy, meets with Goliath, this big giant, this big war hero. And David has this different type of empowerment and confidence as he's facing this Goliath, because he says and he knows that he has the Lord of the army next to him, by him, and that he has faith not in his own ability, but he has faith in who God is. And that if he wills it, all things are possible for him who believes. So I think to myself this, and I pose this question to everyone here. What would you believe if you knew that anything, if God wills it, were possible? What would you be willing to dream if you know that God, the author of impossible, is capable of doing all things if it's within his will? How would we dream? What goals would we set? What boldness would we go out there in the world? Your financial goals, your personal goals, your health goals, your family goals. And I just start to think, because many of my goals for most of my life, being someone that is not a person of faith at first, was simply goals based on what I thought was possible. Realistic thinking. And then I started learning about business and mindset, and I started thinking, dream big. But then I think there's another level of goals, and that's for the person of faith, a faith type goal, a God-sized dream, a dream that is so massive and so impossible that the only way that it is possible is if God shows up in a miraculous way and bails us out. What if we dared to dream bold dreams like that? What if we dared to go for quantum leaps in that type of a way? And that we knew that all things are possible with God if it's in his will, but we're also okay if they're not in his will. And it makes me just start to realize, it makes me start to think like, I need to live a different type of life and think a different way. And I realize it's not about my power, and it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be faithless sometimes. It's okay to doubt. I don't know if you ever feel this way, but do you ever feel guilty when you doubt? Do you feel like, man, I'm not doing things right? As I meditate through Mark 9:14 to 29, I just realize in the journey of faith and the journey of life, there is such an encouragement to know that we don't need a lot of faith. We just need to seek the person that is the author of faith. We pray big, we believe big, we doubt big, But realize that if it's in God's will, it'll be done in his timing. If it's not in God's will, it won't be done. And that's okay. Either way is okay. But we do have a responsibility. I end it with this. God's given us a unique opportunity. While he can do all, while he is all powerful and omniscient, he's designed this universe in a way that he's entrusted his people with the unique opportunity to have a relationship with God himself. That he designed you, he knitted you, it says in Psalms, in his mother's womb, Psalm 139, 13-14. You're wonderfully made. And he predestined you. He had a call for you. He placed you with certain gifts and talents and opportunities. He placed you with certain dreams. That he designed man and woman to be on this earth, to carry out, to partner with God, to have a relationship with God, and to carry out his will. It says that we are his hands and his feet of the church. God chose us to be the people that carried things out. And how fascinating is that? How unique is that? That all we have to do is through prayer, through faith, through obedience, that we can actually help God carry out his master plan. How amazing is that type of, when I think about that, I'm just shocked and I'm awed with humility that the God of the entire universe would think enough of you and I to actually not just redeem us, to want to save us, but to want to use us. How about you? That trips me out. It's like if Elon Musk came up to your door today and literally knocked on your door and like, hey, I got a job for you. You down? It's like, whoa, wow, what an honor. This ain't Elon Musk. This is God himself. He has a gift and a call for each and every single one of us that if you choose to accept, there's a completely different type of empowered life. There's a miraculous life. There is a life that is uniquely empowered, not because you're amazing, but on the opposite end, because we're not that amazing, but we can be used by God. Last verse that comes to mind, Paul is talking about this interesting conundrum. He says something along the lines of God uses the foolish in the world to be able to confound the wise. We're in a world where you have to look a certain way, talk a certain way, be a certain way, have a certain amount of money, and all that to have power. But God flips the script and he searches throughout the world for people. It says in 2 Chronicles 16:9, he searches to and fro throughout the earth for people whose hearts are committed to him. And God's looking for men and women that have just an ounce of faith of a mustard seed, to be okay with being used in their weakness, to be okay with being used in their vulnerability, that we can be used as vessels to be able to carry out his perfect will. And because God uses those, the saying is that God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So that to realize that we don't have to be that amazing, but to realize that because of the very fact that we're not that amazing. So if you feel like you're someone that doesn't have a background, someone that doesn't have influence, that you feel like you could never be used. In fact, hello, Happy New Year. God is looking for people just like you and me, who are the overlooked, who are the underdogs, who are the ones that the world would never expect to be used in a spectacular way. But God uses those that the world would consider foolish to confound the wise of the world so that he can display his glory in everything. Yeah. I think it's so powerful. So as I'm concluding today on this reflection, if we'll love to hear comments below. If you have any questions, we can definitely comment back to this. On the end of the fourth day of 21 days of a spiritual water fast, I'm starting to realize that because of my powerlessness, if all I have is just a little bit of faith, then God is able to work miracles through not just me, but God is able to work miracles through you as well too, if you accept that. It's an ego check, but it's a reality of things. And better is one day in his court than 1,000 elsewhere. I'd rather it be this way. So I'm excited. Lots of breakthroughs have happened already in day 4. I got 17 days left. If you're interested in this type of topic, I'd love to hear your comments below. Like this, subscribe to this. I'm doing this 21 days. We're preparing to launch a book that I'm writing called the Miraculous Breakthrough Formula. It's a 7-day biblical challenge, biblically guaranteed, to help you get unstuck and achieve the impossible in life. So we've got a Kickstarter for that. Check the link tree in the bio. Would love for you to, if you want to learn how to pick up a copy of that book and also to be able to support it, would love that. Would be an honor. And also January 15th, I'm going to be walking through those principles live. If you want to join us, we'd love for you to, on how to properly fast, pray, and study the Bible for miraculous breakthroughs. First time I'm doing it, January 15th, free challenge. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a lot of people already interested in that and participating. If you're interested in participating in that, the way to do it, subscribe to my YouTube because I'm going over live details on how to do it. But also we have a Telegram group that's free to join. Take a look in the Kingdom Builders Telegram group. You can check in my links in the bio. Just join. I think it's my second link in my link in the bio. And would love for you to join in that as we prepare for that breakthrough challenge. It's going to be amazing. But thank you so much for tuning in. I love to hear your thoughts, your comments on my blabbering and my reflections off of the 4th day of a water-only fast. It's been challenging at some points, but so rewarding as well too. I know the best is yet to come. I'm expectant and hopeful for the miracles that God's going to work through this and also work in your lives as well too, and appreciate the follows. But other than that, God bless. Have an incredible weekend and talk soon.